Well, either you're closing your eyes to a situation you do not wish to acknowledge, or you are not aware of the caliber of disaster.
Hello.
The Emperor has been expecting you.
You're gonna get your mind right.
Warning. Common sense incoming.
Alive. It's alive!
I'll alert the media.
We have some bad hombres here, and we're going to get them out.
Here I come to save the day.
Warning, this contains explicit material suitable for children.
Ridiculous bullshit.
Dignity. Always dignity.
Now to me, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, say no more.
But you know what? I like you, because you are special.
Want to see me make bubbles with my spit? Sure do. In fact, that's the theme of our show.
Great heavens! What kind of radio show is this?
Some religious officials are referring to this as the opening signs of the impending apocalypse.
This is the Blab.
First of all, the intro. If you're a regular follower of the program, you'll notice some new and interesting segments and voices in there. And what that is it turns out it's an oldie but goodie intro that we used to use in a long ago way, and I just was screwing around when I threw everything together at the last minute because I'm getting older and more indifferent with each passing day. So many references that that was Donald, of course, guest starring there a couple of times. It wasn't any, wasn't. Of course, it may have been subliminal. I may have intentional put it in there just to have a reason to bitch at him. But
Donald is always entertaining.
Donald's a dick. So anyway, thematically, of course, there's the old take me out to ball game. So let's talk about right off the bat.
Good one. Good transition there.
By the way, we should do the disclaimer. Explain why you sound like a 900 call. Hi.
I woke up this morning and my allergies kicked in and I'm losing my voice.
Well, maybe not. Maybe it's just, remember that episode of Friends where Phoebe got the same thing and she ended up singing with it and loving it and making a big star thing out of it too? This may be a whole new audience for you.
There we go.
Hey, everybody. It's me, Dave. How you doing? All right,
right off the bat, let's talk about the All-Star game being moved. How you feeling about that?
Bullshit. It's bullshit. It's bullshit busy work, like you described. Number one, the entire voting, the misrepresentation of that voting law is ridiculous.
Okay.
And I'm sure you know. I mean, if you read the little bullet points, it inflames the pot. Matter of fact, the New York Times, believe it or not, today, and I'm gonna read. I copied the quote because I said, now finally, the New York Times is making fucking sense after all these years. But
they'll be relieved to know that.
Let me see. God damn, I can't.
Talk amongst yourselves while Dave researches his material.
While I pull my damn material.
Don't be pulling your damn material while we're doing the radio.
Here we go. The public debate on Georgia new voting law has become a stew of falsehood, propaganda, and panic. Part of the blame lies with the CEOs of major companies who are either uninformed at best or cowardly at worst.
Mm-hmm.
What's your opinion? Well, I already know your opinion, but what's your opinion?
Well, you might be surprised.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think I agree with you on a different frequency. I think that showing, I don't want to say solidarity, the thematic for me now more than ever about everything, and we've talked about this in a general different context, is actions have consequences. And how they don't seem to anymore, especially after the last 4 or 5 years. I think you're right. I saw an article, or I agree with your assessment. I saw an article this morning. I didn't have time to read it in detail, but the problem, as usual, we need to come up with a little usual musical, as it just means as usual. As usual, it's both sides and all sides. This bill sucks in a number of ways that are very critically important. And it does, in fact, clean up some things that need to be cleaned up at the same time.
Right.
Both sides, the Republicans in Georgia are just bound, damned, and determined. And Kemp is making, the governor down there is in large measure trying to suck up to Donald now on the backside because he stayed on the front side. So I have this thing where, well, you know what? Everybody just needs a timeout and go to their room and behave themselves and do the right thing. But gee, week in, week out, we have these conversations, and thousands of shows have these conversations, and the wheel on the bus goes round and round, round and round. I think there's stuff in the bill that indicates that they're trying to limit voting where they can and suppress it where they can, for the simple fact that, well, it's not political, it's simply a fact. Not an alternate fact.
Was
a fact.
What, like the gerrymandering?
That, but statistically, across the board, in the world, in life, in America, it's like a mantra. The larger the turnout, the more likely the Democratic parties win when these things happen. And if the Republicans don't seem to be able to get well, they're not even Republicans anymore. We've had that conversation too. The Trumpists can't get their shit together as far as decent platforms that would move people who are kind of in the middle and silent. I'm one of them.
Right.
So let's tamper with the voting process where we can. Now let's throw in a few things that are fixable so we can say, you guys are overreacting because look what we're doing.
What about the bill don't you like? I mean,
well, I don't have specifics in front of me. Tell me, you said yourself, do you? Do you have stuff we can talk about there?
I actually read the bill, Scott.
I read it once.
And I'm
waiting for the movie to come out.
But I hate to, I'm always right, Scott. I hate it. I hate it that I'm always right.
You'll get used to it.
Remember when
I've learned to live with it.
Do you remember when, I say they're all alike?
Yes.
Well, Joe Biden, meet the new boss that is the same as the old boss. He's doing his best Donald Trump with this Georgia thing. And CNN, everybody fact-checked him.
Mm-hmm.
Here's his exact words. He's worried about how un-American this whole initiative is, calling it sick. You're going to end voting at 5 o'clock when working people are just getting off work.
Okay.
That's fucking false. They're not tampering. The election day voting hours run from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But here's why the new boss, same as the old boss.
Well,
Jen Psaki doubled down. Remember how Trump's press secretary would double down on any lie Trump would tell?
Mm-hmm.
She doubled down on that one.
Let me save you some information here.
Sure.
Or at least some time for us.
Sure.
I'm not going to disagree with you in the basic principle of what you're talking about. I will, for the foreseeable future, always reserving the right later on to say so, but cold dead hell when this happens, because it ain't going to happen. The old joke that I frequently use, the old punchline, hi, welcome to Alabama, at least we're not Mississippi.
Right.
Hi, welcome to Joe Biden, at least we're not Donald Trump. I refuse, and I will always refuse, to conflate Donald Trump with anybody, okay? And again, the mistakes Biden makes and the paths that he takes and all the rest of that, and they're open and his criticism is viable and valid and legitimate and all the rest of that, I don't care. To the extent that doesn't give him a free pass, it simply says he's not Donald Trump. I said 5 years ago, and I said once every week here for the last, how many every years we've been doing this?
Couple.
That the problem is underneath the thing under the thing is that whatever good Trump may or may not have accomplished, the price for accomplishing those things for all of us was way, way, way too high. So I don't give him that, and I don't go there with that business. I think Biden's feet need to be held to the fire, and I think that I'm not seeing anything that's out of the ordinary. When I said, we joked about this before the election, I said I want to go back to the good old fashioned fucked up America.
Yeah, that's.
I think that's where we are right now, give or take the dynamic of what's going on, because the Trumpism thing is still holding on like grim death, and they want to make as much noise as they can and make it all. So there's that.
Well, the problem I have, and again, the race baiting is always terrible. This is Jim Crow. Dude, they're not denying people water and food in line. What is the specific regulation or situation or caveat that says? No, I want to know, because this is inquiring minds. We should ask
We should be able to ask questions of each other like this, and proper information should be exchanged back and forth. That's how answers come to and solutions come to problems, instead of this constant fucking "I know you are, but what am I" stuff that we all engage in constantly.
Well, here you go. This is what Joe Biden said, verbatim. If you want any indication that how this has nothing to do with fairness, nothing to do with decency, they passed a law saying you can't provide water to people standing in line while they're waiting to vote.
Okay.
Which is false.
Okay.
The actual law reads, no person shall solicit votes in any manner or by any means or method, nor shall any person distribute or display any campaign material, nor shall any person give, offer, or give or participate in giving of any money, gifts, including but not limited to food, drink, to an elector.
Meaning you can't give somebody water and food in exchange for their vote?
Yes. People who are working at the polls can't give them
water and
food.
Okay.
You can bring your own water and food. If you have family that's outside, they can bring you water or food.
Let's tailgate and vote.
Basically.
Okay.
But, I mean, that actually makes sense.
Well, this brings us to another thing, I think. And don't get me wrong.
Right.
I'm not giving Joe Biden a carte blanche free pass and everything that he needs to be held accountable for, because even in good old-fashioned fucked up America, that's how we did things and how we do things. But this brings to light something else that I think is as the noted political philosopher Keanu Reeves would say, "Whoa, strange things are afoot in Washington, D.C." The media, or at least the black, dark Darth Vader part of the media, is like Donald, and Donald's a master player, but we'll leave him out of this for a second, wherever.
Shit stirrers?
Yeah, well, yeah. They're keen mixers, okay? And what I like to say, this is the obscure reference for the Bond fans in the group. The dark side of the media is the Emilio Largo of this scenario. And very quickly, because I think I've mentioned it before, in the movie Thunderball with Sean Connery, Largo is the bad guy, the Spectre bad guy. Bond gets invited to go and have lunch on the island there with the house, and then he comes back at night dressed all in black, and he's trying to break in to do whatever, and it's got the shark-filled swimming pool and all that shit.
With a cover.
Yeah, in the course of the firefight, Bond jumps down, and he jumps down off the roof. He has his little Beretta. He shoots one way, and then he shoots the other way, and then he jumps back in the forest, and the security guys hear the shots, and they start shooting at what they're shooting at, and Largo runs out and goes, "You idiots, you idiots! It's got you shooting at each other!" Welcome to the media.
Yes.
In the world, that part of the media in the world 2021. Why? That goes layer under the layer, because if you got viewers, then you got numbers to show advertisers, then you got revenues, then you got money. This is an issue that's going to become more and more critical in the world, in life and existence, in the near and in the future as far as we can see it, for a simple reason. And I was talking about this in a different context for something other reason. I don't remember why. When I was a kid, there were 3 networks in PBS, and they were on from dawn until midnight-ish. And at midnight-ish, So news organizations could compete with one another, the 3 networks in PBS, which was kind of a different deal anyway. And that was kind of it. They could still be basically factual. They could report the news. They could throw in their commentaries and editorial stuff. And it was the 3 competing for the advertising dollars, et cetera. Now, you got 53,000 streaming services, 8 kabillion stations, 24/7. Nothing but noise, nothing but shit, as much fart noise as TNA. If it bleeds, it leads, baby. And I wonder if there aren't experts, maybe this is worth looking into someday, currently like scholarly types, who are devoting themselves to studying this part of the equation that I think gets lost in all of the gunfight at OK Corral bullshit that has to do with, well, I'm gonna wail at Trump, you're gonna wail at Biden, I'm gonna wail at Trump, you're gonna wail at Biden. Meanwhile, who's stirring the shit? Now, it's Biden's responsibility to get it right, to get his information correctly, and to get it factually and deal with it from there. All right, and that doesn't.
And I don't like the fact that very much like, and I didn't like it when Trump did it. And had his press secretary double down on whatever lie he told. And it seems like that's the new politics in Washington.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm agreeing up to the point where I say, like we talked about many times, and I used the metaphor that I used was there's a difference between murder depending on how it's committed. Okay. I'll grant you there's some felonious activity going on. I'm speaking metaphorically.
Yeah.
Here, but still.
Well, do you know why? Well, you know why. You're a smart guy.
I don't know.
Delaware has all of these same rules that Georgia just passed in effect. Mm-hmm. His home state. Mm-hmm. The rules he's bitching about. Mm-hmm. Do you know why he's bitching?
Who?
Biden.
Because
Georgia's a swing state. Delaware is clearly goes Democratic every election. If Georgia wasn't a swing state,
okay,
you know, passed this law, I don't think anybody make a noise.
Okay, that's a fair shot. Now let me offer you this.
Yeah.
Oh, you know who else is dropping the ball big time?
Who?
Brian fucking Kemp, the governor of Georgia. You know why? Because I'm not a governor, but I play one on TV. I could solve 90% of this problem in a New York minute if I was the Georgia governor. How's that for mixed metaphor? You know how I do it? I'd hold a press conference. I'd ask for national time, or I'd ask for widespread, and the reporters would be there. And I would stand at the damn lectern, and I would say, let's go item by item, and let me explain to you what this law really says and what it really means. Right. Information, correct info. I heard myself. I saw Fargo the other day, and all of a sudden I'm channeling Marge or Frances McDormand. Information, yeah. Oh, yeah. Information is power, and it's powerful. If you stand up and go, like what we're doing here, only really doing it in a large context where it gets broadcast, here's what people think is here's what people think is happening, here's what's happening. Let's read it. In the year 2021, not doing that is inexcusable.
Right.
And by not doing that, then that lends credence to the idea that, well, they don't want to do that because they don't want too much scrutiny on the bill because there is shit in there that needs to be taken out because it's...
Yeah, well, there was a little bit of...
goes.
When I was reading the bill, there was a little bit of the... I don't completely understand the gerrymandering, the rezoning, things of that nature. That's beyond my scope.
It's not that complicated.
No, but I know, but I'm saying I don't really understand... I understand expanding areas to get votes, to win that district.
Okay.
But I just...
what else do you need to understand? That's what it is.
That's what it is. But the thing that really bothers me is when they're talking about voter ID. I mean, having to present your ID.
Mm-hmm.
I don't quite understand why there should be any discussion about that. If you don't have an ID, you shouldn't be able to vote.
Okay.
I mean, does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Yet,
once again, the people in position with the information, and in this case, and if anybody else has any different concept and wants to clue us in, please do.
Yeah.
In whatever fashion you do as you listen to this, whenever it may be listened to, whether it's a governor of Georgia, whether it's the head of whatever. Again, we're not living in the dark ages. Anybody, you and I, well, we are. We go to YouTube and we can be seen and heard around the world with whatever we say.
We should get on a podcast.
We should get on the podcast and do that. If there was some methodology. And once I say that's all they have to do. Yeah. And they don't. And this is the other part. Somebody said, "Yeah, well, then they could just get up there and say anything." No. I mean, yeah, but no. And here's what the no is. It's 2021. They got shit like PowerPoint and visual aids and video stuff, and they could show the damn
bill. They could show it. They could read it right off.
There you go. Now, interesting conversational side note, and we don't need to go into it at length on this program, but doesn't it make you wonder, well, how come? That seems pretty simple. How come he hasn't, or somebody in position hasn't done that? My brain takes me to, well, unless there's something I'm overlooking, and I'm sure that's possible, but not likely. Clearly, they don't want that scrutiny on the bill because let's make as much noise. It's the same old bullshit, and both sides and all sides are doing it. If I don't want you to know what my left hand is up to, all I have to do is keep snapping the fingers on my right hand. Okay? All this shit about no water or suppressing vote and Jim Crow, that's what's going on over here, okay? Or the stuff that's factually incorrect. Look, listen, wow, hey, noise, trouble, writing, blah, blah, blah over here, and everybody's arguing about the sound of my hand over here. Meanwhile, there's some genuine nefarious shit going on the left hand.
Could be.
Why doesn't anybody come to Kemp and say, solve this problem? Why aren't you solving the problem? It's right there in front of you to take care of.
That makes a lot of sense.
Well, this is why I don't run for office.
You make too much sense.
Well, you know, you can't make too much sense. As far as I know.
But in the end, who gets hurt by them moving that All-Star game? The small businesses in that area that were counting on that money.
Yeah.
And it's the people that always get hurt.
All right, let's jump a little here. All right, not to belabor the issue point, let's talk about for a minute infrastructure. The $3 kabillion that he wants to do with
the $3 kabillion?
$3 kabillion he wants to do with the infrastructure problem. Without getting in it point by point and note by note. And let's assume, let's have the court take into evidence, and we concede the fact that there is a general amount of nefariousness going on both sides to various levels, which we don't need to keep debating because it goes round and round. I'm talking about the principle of the plan and the idea of doing it. What do you think about that?
I like the infrastructure idea. I don't like the fact that the bill is so much, dollars wise.
Mm-hmm.
I read it. I just read a 25-page summary of the proposal, and only $750 billion of that money actually fits the broad definition of infrastructure.
And what's the rest of it?
I don't know. I mean, it didn't list items, one after the other in the. But 6% of the proposed spending went towards roads and bridges in its current form. Some of the things, some of the housing, there were some housing things in there that looked pretty good. But and there was something for the elderly. I think elderly relocation or something. Stuff like that looked fine.
Nah, fuck them. They've lived long enough.
But dude, the bill's literally a couple thousand pages long.
Welcome to the world.
Yeah. So, but it just broke down what the traditional definition of infrastructure.
You know what? It occurs to me. And once again, I'm always the guy looking beyond the thing because the thing bores me. I like what's beyond the thing because there's answers to be found in beyond the thing. There's so much noise and there's so much debate and there's so much argument and there's so much discussion and dissertation and all those other words that we throw around about on the ballpark thing, just any general topic that has to do with these things that have to do with moving life forward one way or another. And a theme keeps bubbling to the surface in my brain, and that is those in a position to do so simply are not asking the right questions of the right people. And they're not demanding answers to those questions. And they're not settling, and if they are asking those questions, they're settling for an answer instead of getting to the bottom. One of the most infuriating things, and I think when you hear this business about this cliche bullshit, well, the American people, the American voters are just angry and frustrated. That's a stock, get a button and take a number. You know why? I'm not sure they know why. I think I know why. It's the reason I just said. People don't tend to think about it that far. They don't take it that far, and they can't necessarily articulate it. No, but they sense it, even if and some probably do realize it because sometimes people end up being smarter than you think. Not all that often. The right people in the right positions are not asking the right questions and they're not demanding. And that starts with the voters. Okay. That starts with, because that's where it begins.
Right.
Putting these people in office. I mean, what the fuck is Josh Hawley doing? What the fuck is Marjorie Taylor Greene doing in the Congress of the United States of America, for God's sake? We're not talking about policy differences there. We're talking about what the fuck are they doing in that job? I mean, come on. But again, as I said a minute ago, the bill, understanding how it works. Anytime Congress does what it does, and it's done this since 1776, they're going to move forward, and they all do it, all of them, all the time. This is something we want to do. People are going to get behind this for the most part. They're going to get enthusiastic. And while we're at it, let's tack this little thing on here so that we can get our little, but everybody's got something. Well, who's in charge of controlling that? Nobody's in charge. Everybody's in a position of power and authority, but nobody's in charge. And it's a constant hamster wheel. And that's why, if you strip it right down to it, how to get to where we need to get to in terms of answers, questions and answers, et cetera, it's a very simple process. The actual process, if you were to write it down for a school assignment, write down how this could be done. Like I just said a minute ago, the governor of Georgia going on television and saying, here's the law, item by item, here's what it says. Now, there can be no more discussion about it because there it is.
Right.
Hasn't done it, isn't doing it. That's frustrating. Even to people who aren't all that bright, who go, all you got to do is straighten it out. Well, it ain't happening.
Nope.
Well, that's a cheerful thought.
Yeah, it's and at some point, this is why a lot of the Republicans weren't on board with this. Excuse me, because at some point, hyperinflation is going to kick in. We can't just keep printing money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just economics. And
the wheel on the bus goes around and everybody gets splashed with the mud. And this is coming out of an administration that slashed taxes for the rich to next to nothing, raised the debt, the national debt, to an all-time high. And now this is, it's funny, not funny. It's the financial equivalent of the joke we made where 10 seconds after Joe was sworn in, we go, well, now let's take a look at this COVID death count. And how come it's not, you've been in office for 12 seconds. Let's go. It's the same thing with the financial stuff, too. Personally, not only just personally, but as a voter, but as a whatever else I may be when I consider it, it's infuriating because I can't really. It's funny. You didn't grow up in the kind of environment that I did, and I'm not trying to be weird here. I'm just trying to make a point in a different way to help illustrate this point. I grew up in what eventually was a broken home, and during the part of that period where it was breaking down, there was a lot of bickering and bantering back and forth. It was not a pleasant upbringing. But and I was relatively young when it really started to turn to shit, 13, 14. But I still, to this day, 50 years later, I still remember many times thinking to myself, at the age of 13, a pretty sophisticated series of thoughts that basically boiled down to this. For the love of God, man, just fucking divorce each other and stop all this fucking back and forth yammering, arguing, bitching, blah, blah, blah. I get a sense of that's what, and politics to a certain extent is that way.
Yeah, it's always been that way.
But there's always been a line that wasn't crossed. There's always been, we don't go that any farther than this road sign. Fucking road sign is in the rear view.
Yeah.
And this applies to any and everything that we're talking about.
Well, fiscally, and this is, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if you noticed this. It started with the Obama administration where I guess we thought we could just print money to solve all of our problems.
I tried that, but the feds came after me.
Well, when Trump got in office, the first thing I thought was, okay, well, maybe he's going to be fiscally responsible. And he wasn't.
Okay.
And so, and now don't get me wrong, COVID didn't help, and COVID wasn't his fault, but he still didn't. He wasn't, even before COVID, he wasn't being fiscally responsible.
Okay, here, I promise this is the only time in this entire episode I'll say this, because this is a patented SCP that the people who agree with me go, yeah, and the people who don't agree with me are fucking tired of hearing me say it. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He's a doorknob moron.
He's gone.
There you go.
He's gone. All right.
I know, but I'm saying in terms of, that was part of when I was still doing the live Sunday night show during that election back in 2016. And people if I had a dime for every time somebody said, well, we need a good businessman in there, and this guy's and I'm like, do you fucking get it? This is the con. He doesn't. It's not about his willingness or his he's a stump. If he hadn't inherited money from his father, he would be the third key carrying assistant manager at AutoZone, and I apologize to the hardworking people of AutoZone. He's a stump. No,
well, he's gone now, so we don't have to argue out here.
I know, I'm not. I'm just saying I needed to say that.
But yeah, but basically, and now, we've got Joe comes in, and we still haven't spent all the money in the first COVID relief bill. We've got a second COVID relief bill, and now he does this infrastructure bill. It's like, it's like monopoly money.
Well,
so it's at some certain point, we can't do this anymore.
Maybe.
The U.S. dollar probably isn't worth much now.
From what I read, and I don't read that much because I have, I struggle with not only intellectual inflammation a lot of the time. I'm reaching a point in my life where I don't fucking care anymore. And it's kind of a benign indifference because I do, but I don't. It's a matter of how much and where.
Right.
And I say before, to me, and I have a certain time frame in my own brain. I'm not going to, Joe's on probation. Let's put it that way. But you know what? Anybody who got the job, with the exception of Donald, had he been reelected, would have been on probation. Because in my brain, when these kinds of things go down, and especially with a new presidential administration, in his not necessarily complex, but in a gnarled up way of doing things as the American presidency is, I kick into my old manager mode. I used to hire and fire people and have to organize things and run things. When I hired somebody, I didn't assess their performance on a yay or nay basis when they'd only been with me for a week or two. You got to give them a chance to show me what you got. Okay. So in that light, in my head, those people were on, only in my mind, they're on probation. I don't think you're going to be a raging success. I don't think you're going to be a raging failure. I don't really know. I have a feeling you're going to do a good job. Otherwise, I wouldn't have hired you because I'm pretty good at that. Well, it's too soon to tell, and we'll see. The infrastructure thing. They say, well, yeah, spending all this money. And this is, historically, this is another thing. People, for God's sake, once in a while, check out the History Channel or the Smithsonian Channel on one of those rare nights when they actually have history programming on, as opposed to ice truckers bang the Kardashians or all that other shit they put on there now.
I would actually watch that.
And this is exactly the problem. So I'm saying this is where, historically, the people that screamed bloody murder when Franklin Roosevelt came along with the New Deal and all the stuff that went with the New Deal. But on the backside, he knew, because of where his perspective was, that, yeah, or Eisenhower with the interstate system in the late 50s. That's a lot of money to be cranking out for cement and all that. We can't keep printing money, blah, blah. Yeah, but think all the people that went to work, jobs, et cetera, et cetera. All these things that are interconnected. So I don't know yet as far as that's concerned. And if it has to err on something, I say, given what's happened for a long time now, but especially during the Trump time, if you got to err on one side, then err on the side of doing too much and having to pull it back. Because let's bet dollars to donuts. If he was taking it less, okay, we just spent that to do that. Now let's spend this to do that, even though we haven't finished spending that to do that. All anybody's really hearing, if they're going to go in that direction, is, well, we just spent that and we just spent that. But they're not hearing that, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. How many people would be up and bitching and saying, well, see, I told you, elected that fucking Biden who sleeps all the time and plays with his dogs, all right? And they bite. One of them bites. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like, yeah.
That's a good point.
He's doing shit, and I find that exciting. Now, he's responsible, and he has to be accountable for however it flies. If it turns out that this, in his own fun way, at 89 years old or whatever he is, he's geared up and he's running. He may run with a little gait, but he's running. Well, if it ends up being a Joe-shaped hole in the wall, then that's his problem, and that's the way it goes. It's Wile E. Coyote all over again. But in the meantime, I don't defend him, and I don't defend what he's done thus far, because the jury's still out as far as I'm concerned.
Most definitely.
But I do defend the fact that he's doing it.
I wasn't criticizing; I was questioning.
No, I'm saying, and I'm not. I'm not offering that counterpoint.
Yeah, that's my prerogative as a U.S. citizen.
Yeah, prerogative.
Or somebody who just crossed the border illegally.
Hang on.
This is fun. It smells really good.
It's so tasty, too.
All right, I wasn't supposed to do that. That was the wrong button. But I threw up the right graphic. It just says two guys talking more. What else you got?
Dude, I don't know if you, and this scares the living shit out of me. I don't know if you saw the advertisement, but of the 260 hand sanitizers, 21 of them are excessively loaded with cancer-causing agents. Dude, I use hand sanitizer between every transaction at the golf course.
Well, did it name those?
Purell wasn't on there, but I don't use Purell.
Well, you need to stop buying your hand sanitizer. What was the sitcom where the guy was feeling his stomach was rumbling and he said, "What's the matter?" And he said, "Well, maybe gas station sushi wasn't such a good idea."
Yes.
You need to not buy your hand sanitizer from the guy out of the trunk of the car.
I started looking on all the ingredients. Benzene is the cancer-causing, the carcinogen.
I thought benzene was the guy who killed all the Avengers.
No.
Oh, that was Thanos. Okay, sorry.
But yeah, dude, it's
well, that's cheery.
Yeah.
Well, it's not very. What you've done though, now you've created a thing here. You can't offer any real helpful information to people so they can check, except to check for benzene.
Check for benzene and buy Purell because it doesn't have it in it.
All right, let me steer you.
Throw something out.
Did you watch any of the SAG awards?
No, I did not.
Okay, I didn't either.
I stopped watching award shows a long time ago.
I did too. And I used to enjoy them, but only for I've always had kind of unless I'm nominated, in which case I turn into a fucking hypocrite faster than you can say hypocrite. But
there you go.
It's wonderful to be nominated. First of all, the whole award show is off the track with the COVID thing anyway, doing them virtually and with the screens and all the rest of that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with giving people acknowledgement or awards, but I'm more of a George C. Scott / Marlon Brando kind of guy when it comes to the concept of awards. You know, they're meat parades. How do you decide what's the best film or the best TV? But here's an interesting thing that I noticed when I just perused the winners list this morning real quickly. And it's like no big earth-shattering thing, but just worth 60 seconds or 90 seconds worth of chit-chat. More and more and more and more when it comes to the television part of these things, the Emmys in general, SAG Awards, the television division, very, 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 even 4 times very few awards anymore. Not only nominations, but specifically awards are being given to any of the programming on the three major networks.
Yep, I was getting ready to say that.
All the winners are coming from the streaming services. And admittedly, it's not a level playing field because at this point, there's a lot of stuff you can do on HBO and Netflix and assorted others that you can't do on CBS without giving Granny a serious heart attack.
No, you're right. You're right.
But I just, and I think this is another thing about Joe, at least where he's headed. And I think we mentioned this last week. A big chunk of that first bill went to that money they're going to put to the endowment of the arts and getting those things back on track. And I say yay thee, because people
never have a problem with endowment to the arts.
People need to understand. They don't necessarily need to accept it, but if they don't accept it, they can just take a seat and shut the fuck up. They need to understand all of these things are part of an enriched life, which is critical to the quality of life. And if what I'm saying is like totally not registering with you, then you're the person that we're talking to. But anyway, I just saw that. But now let me throw something else at you real quick in the category of entertainment stuff. Paul McCartney has a relatively new album out called McCartney 3. Now, the Beatles / McCartney geeks all know this, and I'm not going to spend an hour talking about backstory, but here's how it works. McCartney 3 is actually, and he's put out a number of albums through the years with Wings and his own bands and himself and all that. His very first solo album, quote unquote, after the Beatles was in 1970. The Beatles were still kind of together, and it was called McCartney.
They were together until the release of that album that had the interview on it.
Yeah, there you go. He interviewed himself.
He interviewed himself and said, "I'm leaving the Beatles."
It's quality. But then he was pissed because John had jumped it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Just look it up on the Google. Because you may not be a Beatle fan per se. Anyway, McCartney was the first one in 1970. Sometime in the 80s, I think it was, when he was on Columbia Records, he released a sequel to that album, which is kind of goofy because he'd done a bunch of stuff with Wings and what's a sequel and what's not, called McCartney 2.
Right.
Cleverly, he just released an album which he calls the sequel to that one, and can you guess what it's called? I just told you, McCartney 3. But here's the thing, under the thing. And this is one of those things that makes me feel like the old fart fogey, but I know I'm not, so I just thought I'd bitch about it for 30 seconds. There's already an album out called McCartney 3 Reimagined, And what it is it's a collection of contemporary, and I don't like to use the word artists with performers these days, contemporary singers, okay, like Beck. I don't know, Cardi B's probably on there.
Beck is actually a genius.
Okay, but I haven't seen but I've seen the basic list, and I recognized 4 or 5 of the names, so I know it's a contemporary list because I haven't paid attention to pop music in 20 years. Each one of them has, like a tribute album, each one of them has selected one of the songs on McCartney 3, which that album's only about 20 minutes old. And they perform that song. In fact, Beck apparently features Paul McCartney as a guest vocalist on the thing. Now, what it makes me think of is a thing I used to do on music radio for fun, just because I'm me. And I said, next, with the possible exception of Keeping Up with the Kardashians and Satan convincing the world that he didn't exist, the greatest scam that's ever been created in the entire world, and you got to throw in the Trump presidency now, but the greatest scam that's ever been created in mankind's history
is McCartney 3
was the remix album.
Oh yeah.
Now, for those of you who are young and don't understand or remember, the remix album was like this. Let's say Dave's band put out an album. Sometime within like a year at most, but sometimes as soon as like 3 or 4 months later, they'd go into the studio, put the tracks up, they'd get one of the faders and move the bass up maybe 10%, repress the album, and market it as Dave's Band, the remix album. What was it designed to do? To further the artistic presentation, to broaden the horizons of the insightful artistry? No, it was to sell you the same fucking record that you just bought 3 months ago. McCartney 3 Reimagined is the new version, to my way of thinking, of we just did this.
Well, you know what made the McCartney 1, 2, and 3 so different was he played everything. Just him. It's just him.
Okay.
So that's why they're spaced out like that. But I heard McCartney 3 and I wasn't impressed.
I haven't heard anything that he's done with the exception of an odd song or two along the way. But I don't, and it's not a critique. I mean, these were my guys. The first guitar I ever got was at 14 in the picture taped in the box because of the Beatles, and so I grew up with them. And that's the thing. I kind of claim bitching rights because I have the same thing that Mick Jagger and John Lennon had that thing many years ago during the breaking up period. Jagger was trashing the Beatles in some interview, and John Lennon got in his shit about it. And Jagger, and they've all known each other for years. Lennon said, "Knock that shit off," and Jagger said, "What are you talking about? You're bashing me." He goes, "It's my fucking band. I can do that. You don't do that. That's like my family. I'll make fun of them, but you don't get to do it." But come on, please.
Well, dude, I was reading. Matter of fact, I was talking to Dean about this. I was reading an interview with one of the producers, one of the earlier producers, who was a Rolling Stone. He was working on the Rolling Stones album when McCartney and Lennon brought "I Want to Be Your Man" to the Rolling Stones. So they're sitting there, and he's sitting. Lennon is sitting across from Mick, face to face, and he goes, "Okay, now the lyrics are very easy. I want to be your lover, baby." And Mick goes, "I want to be your lover, baby." He goes, "I want to be your man. I want to be your man." He goes, "I want to be your lover, baby." Mick goes, "I want to be your lover, baby." He goes, "I want to be your man." He goes, "I want to be your man." And he goes, "I want to be your lover, baby. I want to be your man." "I want to be your man" is the chorus. You say that 4 times.
No, now there is now, and I'm going to split hairs with you because honest to God, I just used "I Want to Be Your Man" in 3 incarnations on an episode of my music podcast called 45 RPM just this week. And what I did was, not to wander too far off your point, was as a unique idea, I took the album Meet the Beatles. I listed all the songs chronologically as if you were playing Meet the Beatles, but I found cover versions of each of the songs by different artists. So it was Meet the Beatles, kind of what they're doing with this reimagined bullshit, except it was clever and funny. But the point was, and I just know because I know, you're absolutely right, except I want to be your lover, baby. I want to be your man. I want to be your lover, baby. I want to be your man. Love you like no other, baby. Like no other can. I want to be your lover, baby. I want to be your man.
So he goes through this with Mick, and Mick just stares at him, and the producer's telling this, and then Mick looks at him and goes, "Let me get a pen." And Lennon said, Jesus Christ.
Mick was supposedly a pretty bright guy. You know, he went to the London School of Economics and all the rest of that. But it was all that.
He said, let me get a pen.
He got a little of that ganja that I think, what's his name got? All right, let me do this right.
This is fun! It smells really good.
It's so tasty, too.
All right. I don't know whether we did last week. I had one. You might have one. It's time for We Recommend, and Dave recommends that you don't... I don't know what you recommend. I just thought it would be nice for us to throw our 5-star idea, movies, music, etc. I do not recommend the reimagined album by McCartney unless you're an idiot. And you got that kind of money you want to spend, then send it our way. I will tell you one thing we've been watching here in the old house that we've enjoyed, and I was a little surprised because I thought, these things can go either way. And it's about 5 or 6 episodes in now. It's on CBS, so you can watch it on your network channel. It's a dark and well done. What's the word I want? Big word. Extrapolation. There you go. Clarice.
Oh, yeah.
It is the follow-up story of Clarice Starling, the FBI agent played by Jodie Foster in the movie Silence of the Lambs. And there's no Hannibal in the movie because that's after. But it actually it picks up in the TV series all these years later. It picks up right after Clarice has kind of come back from rehabbing the turmoil and PTSD of rescuing the girl in the pit, and it puts the lotion in the basket.
My favorite.
And I'll tell you something, the credits, the production credits, because I pay attention to these things, one of the main guys who's running this, the showrunner, they call him now, and semi-creator of this concept is a guy named Alex Kurtzman, and he's involved in a lot of the Star Trek TV series that are on now, Discovery, and he's from that bunch. They always do top-notch work in terms of the quality of presentation and the production values and all the rest of that. The girl that they've got playing Clarice doesn't look like Jodie Foster, but she looks like a Clarice Starling. She's got the accent nailed. It's just really well acted and well done. Right. And it's dark, as you might imagine, but it doesn't go what I call Criminal Minds dark. It's not that, oh my God, they're ripping fingernails out and shoving them up the vagina and that kind of shit.
Now I'd watch that.
It's interesting. I can always count on you. Dave is the everyman in the team here. Anyway, have you seen any of these episodes?
I haven't seen Clarice.
You should watch Clarice. I think you'd like it.
Have you watched any of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
No, I put that on my list for the DVD. I've got family coming in for the next 3 days, and I'm desperately seeking things we can do so we don't have to talk to each other for any length of time. Well, those moments when you go, what do we do now? And because we can't go out about like as much because things still aren't normal. So that's on my list of, hey.
Yeah, definitely check that out. That's really good.
Yeah. So Clarice and The Falcon and the Snowman and
I tell you what, Julie and I, it's an
Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Old thing. Julie and I pulled up the old Stacy Keach Hemingway TV miniseries from the 80s.
Yeah.
That was really good. It was really well done.
Speaking of which,
surprised.
I pooped in your Cheerios a little last week when I was bringing up the Doc Severinsen documentary, which I recommended, and I haven't watched it. I did DVR it, and it's available that's another thing we're going to watch while the kids are here. But I noticed a blurb this morning. I saw the news, just FYI, April 5th through 7th. Today is, as we record, this is what, the 4th, I guess?
5th. Today's 5th.
Tonight, through the next 3 nights on PBS, Hemingway, which is the new Ken Burns thing. Hemingway goes to the Civil War, and and he and Lincoln, along with Franklin Roosevelt, go to the Grand Canyon. And Ken Burns has my admiration for a number of reasons, not the least of which is the entertainment value and informative value of what he does. But wow, you got to really love what you do to sit and do that shit when you're putting those kinds of things together hour after hour.
I mean, just think of the time involved in
hour. Just looking at pictures.
The baseball one.
I'm saying.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's like Dave and I can appreciate it, and other musicians might appreciate it, and I think it's probably tenfold with this because there's so much paraphernalia that they have to go through to assemble these documentaries. But if you've never been involved in recording a single, let alone an entire album of music, you have no idea that, as joyful as it may be for those participating, You got to have a certain set of mental muscles to do it, because you spend and you know what, truth be told, and I'm not defending the Hollywood elite, but it's kind of the same thing for making movies and making TV shows.
You're right.
You spend a lot of time going over and the same shit over and over and over.
I tell you what, by the time you're finished a work like an album, you're tired of it before it even comes out.
You know, somebody in an interview not too long ago asked Paul McCartney one of those inane questions that at first sounds inane, but the way he answered it was brilliant. The interviewer said, you know, you've had this amazing career all your adult life, and you're still cooking and going and doing. Do you have any regrets? Is there anything you'd do differently? And McCartney's a pretty glass half full guy. He's usually full of the, you know, it's going to be all right, mate, kind of guy. His answer was very telling. He said, it's not a regret, but it's a, and I know there's nothing I can do about it, but I do have one thing that I wish I could have done that I just simply will never be able to do. And the interviewer's like, what? And he goes, I would have liked the opportunity to hear a Beatle album the way everybody else heard a Beatle album. The first time it was when it was released, and the first time we put it on the turntable and we hit those songs and boom, 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 because he said, I wrote them. I recorded them. We sat there for days and weeks playing the song over and over. And by the time we got it finished, it was like, dear God, I don't ever want to hear that again as long as I live. So they never had that moment where they turned on the radio and boom, there was a brand new Beatles song with this fresh take. And I thought, that's exactly what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of
He's right. He's right. He's definitely right.
All right. That means we're almost done. All right. You got anything besides anything I'm going to put in parting shots? Because if not, I'll just move forward to...
I'll move forward and we'll do parting shots.
All right. Well, then let's do rim shots.
Shot.
Parting shots, rim shots, a lot of shots. Because we're Second Amendment people around here, man. Guns don't kill people.
People with guns kill people.
Okay. Hershey's has announced Sundae Creations, and that's Sundae, Sundae Creations. It's a kit that you use to assemble your own sundaes with pieces of Reese's Cups, pieces of Kit Kat bars, and pieces of Reese's Pieces. The kit is available at Sam's Club and eventually, of course, at IKEA. Who put that chocolate in the couch? Cheetos. Why don't people stop fucking around with regular stuff? All these flavors. People are so bored. Cheetos has announced a new flavor, Mexican street corn. Now, if you're not familiar with that dish, it actually exists. It is made up of corn on the cob with sour cream, mayonnaise, lime juice, and spices. So God only knows how Cheetos is going to pull that off. But bet the farm that within, I would say 6 weeks most, Cheetos will have a new flavor, pieces of Reese's Cups, Kit Kat bars, and Pastimes, and this one caught me, and I went, that sounds about right. Apparently, they've done some research and checking into it. The pandemic has created several new, very popular pastimes. In other words, people have found doing this in large numbers as they did their research. The most engaged in pastimes during the pandemic, stamp collecting, woodworking, bird watching.
He said wood.
And Nintendo Animal Crossing, which is the video game. So very clearly, I drew this conclusion myself. COVID strikes hardest and most frequently in the nerd community. And this one's for Dave. He may not be aware of this, but I feel like we should. I saw this and I went, well, gosh, I got to put it in rim shots or somewhere. Spartanburg, South Carolina police have busted a guy for walking down the road wearing nothing more than a clear plastic bag over his genitals, or as they're known by their more technical term, his junk. Now, Delaware authorities have gotten involved. They've been notified and expressed surprise as they apparently had no idea whatsoever that John Condren was visiting South Carolina. And what's ironic is Dave mentioned that John's got a little get well thing, and he didn't know that that's been in the program thing now for about 3 days. So
hopefully John will feel better. Yeah.
Well, it's the plastic bag. He drew it too tight. All right. What did I say? I said parting shots. She looks right into the gun.
Right into the eyes. Hey, you know who Rose McGowan is, right? The actress?
I do. She used to be Marilyn Manson's squeeze.
Yes, for a while. And she was also sexually touched by Harvey Weinstein.
Hashtag me too.
Me too. Yeah. So anyway, we covered this last week when Kamala Harris and Bill Clinton, whatever the fuck her name is, and Bill Clinton.
Kamala. I'm going to start calling you the V.
You can. I don't mind. I don't mind.
No, you should mind.
Well, anyway, they were talking. They were talking about empowering women. So she basically
who came up with that fucking bright idea?
Well, she basically said she doubled down on slamming that event and basically was kicked off of Twitter.
Okay.
And then she went on and gave a little presser. Mm-hmm. And she said, "This is your cult leader. If you aren't disgusted, go take a long, hard look in the mirror and wake the fuck up." And I was like, there's a bumper sticker. I mean, you got to have a long bumper.
It's a little long.
You got to have a long bumper, but it's a bumper sticker.
And think of the accidents that will occur with people trying to get close enough to read the entire bumper sticker.
But yeah, I was like, that still blows my mind. Did you see the Hunter Biden interview?
No. I've been preparing for a family visit, and that's like all hunkered down.
They asked him if the laptop was his.
Yeah.
He said, it could be. I'm like, no, deny, Hunter, deny.
Well, I don't know. I mean, without saying in context, I would have to say, I would, the fact that does he impress you as a reasonably intelligent guy?
No.
Okay. So just based solely on that answer or the entire presentation?
I think he's a guy that's highly troubled.
Okay.
Well,
he's the addicted one.
Right.
Okay, so there's that.
But he's just put out a book, so he's on a book presser right now.
Well.
So the first question everybody's asking him is your laptop, dude? And he's like, it could be mine. I don't.
Well, decency kind of dictates that you want to kind of sort of, whether it's silly or not, you kind of sort of want to give him credit for at least not just outright lying. Maybe he's trying to be truthful and show that he's
Well, I mean,
to hide.
He could have taken in a drugged haze. He could have taken it anywhere. So who knows? But I was like, no. The first thing you do is deny. You deny. I'm not a Hunter Biden fan, and I'm like, Hunter, come on, man.
Yeah, he needs to get better people around him. I haven't seen anything, various things. I just wasn't in an op-ed mood. Plus, I find myself, it's interesting. You may or may not have noticed. I know you're busy because now it's the nice weather's back, and so things are busier during the day. But I haven't posted. In fact, I just happened to notice it on myself. I haven't posted more than 4 or 5 politically oriented or spun things in the last week or 10 days. And it isn't that I'm not necessarily, I'm still aware pretty much as I've always been of what's going on. But like, for example, Donald with his bullshit, ridiculous, wahaha Easter message, the tweet that he put out that was just like the fucking wedding reception. It was, did you see this?
I didn't even see it. No.
It's on his letterhead from the office of the 45th president of the United States.
Oh, okay.
And it goes on for like 12 sentences about Biden stealing the election, run the list of Donald Trump whines and pisses and moans.
The broken record.
And ends up at the very last sentence.
Happy Easter.
Other than that, Happy Easter. Okay. My point in bringing it up is...
You got to give it to him. He's consistent.
That's an example of one of these things now where I just, again, we'll see how Joe does. Truth be told, I don't bring this up often because I know it affects Dave's blood pressure and I don't want him to stroke out on me while he's sitting here. But the truth of the matter is the rest of us that are sitting here listening to this program know damn well that Joe's days are numbered because it's going to be Kamala in the White House at least, like I'm saying, 3 months max.
Dude, I will stroke the fuck out of his Kamala.
Kamala.
Whatever the fuck her name is. Look, now I did like this one thing. Who's the Treasury Secretary? Something.
Janet Yellen.
Yes. I don't know if you saw that. She was set to speak at an international forum to argue for a global minimum tax.
Yeah, I saw that.
And you know why, right?
No, tell me.
Oh, well, Biden's looking for his big tax hike, which this is probably the smartest thing he can do by having her address the international taxes, because that, come to find out, that's why Ford's going back to Mexico, because of the tax hike. Mm-hmm. These countries are going to they're going to flee the United States if he raises the corporate taxes like he's talking about doing. But if they don't have a shelter to run to, they'll have to stay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very smart thing that he's. I don't know if it's him or her idea, whose ever idea it was.
Yeah,
that was a very smart thing.
Yeah, it's called strategy.
So
that's why people. This is a whole topic for a whole show, but not to get in it here at the end. But this is why the whole notion of that we went through in 2016. We need somebody in the White House who's not a politician. Is almost, and I got a number of ex-wives, so there's a whole long list of candidates for what I'm about to say. That may be, and I've lived a long time, that may be the single dumbest fucking thing I think I've ever heard anybody say, and they said it repeatedly. Of course you need a politician in the White House, because that's what the job is. And when you put people in there who aren't, and if the Trump thing proved many things that it proved, but it proved that, and if you want to put a businessman in there, okay, take your best shot, but put a real businessman in there, okay? Don't put Art Fern, the used car guy, in there. It's going to bullshit. These are strategies. This is how it works. Because you can't please everybody. You got to have a vision, and you got to move forward. Watch and see 5 years from now, if we're still doing this, God help us, but if 5 years from now, somebody's going to have, and maybe sooner, somebody's going to have the book, maybe Bob Woodward is going to have the book finished. That's going to be a real honest, hard, clear, truthful, brutal, but fair and honest assessment of the Donald Trump 4 years. And one undercurrent existing, you can't avoid it no matter what you do, bottom line thematic is going to be that he was too flawed as a human being to ever have any chance of succeeding in that job because he didn't know how to strategize. And even when he did, and still, he's in a position right now, a bright strategic mind, a real stable genius, would be taking the fact that even though he's done the horrific shit that he's done, including up to and including inciting a riot to storm the United States Capitol building and commit insurrection, he's still seen as the leader of a major political party. And what is he doing to strategize? Issuing statements, whining about Biden stealing the election and saying, other than that, happy Easter. Okay? Because, and my original point, he's a doorknob. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. That's why the stakes failed, the universities failed. Who goes bankrupt owning a casino? You and I, all right? You and I don't know dick about casinos.
That is true.
We could succeed with casinos because here's the thing I remember hearing when I was a kid. The house never loses. Was that a fairy tale or what? So I agree with you. Yeah, it's a good strategy. That's how the game is played. Now, not giving him a free license. I said what I said. I'll repeat it one more time, and that'll be the end of it. You take your chances. He plants his fields. He rolls his dice. If he loses, then he's got to face the music, and that's the way it should work. But that's the way it should work.
Right.
This business of no consequences, and it's especially egregious on the Republican side of the street now with some of these clowns that are trying to pull the shit. Like this, who was that clown with the guy in the wheelchair from Wisconsin, the congressman? The war hero guy or whatever the hell he is.
The one with no legs?
I guess. Cawthon, is that his name?
I can't remember.
He's the one who gave a speech at the convention.
Yeah, I think I know you're talking about.
Okay. Here's a mini example. He apparently, and it's public knowledge because it's available, it's not just somebody harping on the guy. He's going around issuing campaign brochures and public statements how to his constituents and to the general region all around his constituency about how great it is that all this money from the COVID plan is flowing into their coffers, and I'm so happy that you're getting this money, and I was happy to be a part of that, and blah, 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 and the motherfucker voted against the bill. It's a clear matter of public record. That's not accountability. That's not responsibility.
No.
I want some accountability. If Joe, you know what? At least until Kamala takes over, which I figure no later than July. Nah, I'm just kidding. All right. Anything else?
That's so depressing. Talk about ending the show on a down, but
that's what you say. I know Maya Rudolph would be delighted because that would be job security for the next 4 years.
Yes, it would.
Absolutely. It would be like, oh, did you hear Sarah Palin tested positive?
No.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. I think that's all I got. We'll be back next week. Good Lord, Will and Creek Don't Rise. Check out, what did we say? Check out Clarice. You'll enjoy that. Check out the Hemingway documentary. The Doc Severinsen documentary is really good, too. And
Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And wear the fucking mask.
Please.
And take the shots. They're good for you.
If you can take the shots, take the shots.
Take the shots. You are not going to miss your shot. And we'll be back next time with more of The Blab.
I'm talking with